What one was that? Gab. Oh.
It's pretty powerful, this microphone, Wendy. Everyone behaves straight away. Thanks very much, everybody. I've got the first bit I've got here. Graeme didn't want a gathering or any fuss, so he may be making a statement about today's weather. I might have to change that slightly to say that Graeme wanted you all here, and the sun has suddenly shone, the wind has dropped, and I suspect the rain is going to hold off. So Graeme's in front of me here, he's present, so we've got to be polite to Graeme. Some may have different stories of him. But thank you, Graeme, for turning the weather on. It was pretty ordinary earlier on. Good afternoon and welcome. For those that don't know, may not know me, I'm Bruce Simpson, a friend of Graeme and Wendy and the family over many years. My role today is to be the MC for this memorial, and I was very proud to be asked to take on the role. A bit of housekeeping before we get going is telephones either silent or off. So just make sure all phones are silent and off. Toilets, there are toilets over here. There's a building across from the cars parked out here. Male and female toilets over there. And there's also toilets in the clubhouse if you need them at any point. The family, I'll just turn the page. On behalf of Wendy and the family, thank you very much for your attendance today. Many travelling long distances, and including Wendy thought John and Susie Mueller may not be here, and they'd be an apology. And I happened to bump into Susie in the petrol station earlier this morning. They arrived from Paris into Denny at 3 o'clock this morning. So it's a great effort. To support Wendy and the family and remember and farewell Graeme, who, as I said earlier, is placed just in front of me here. The family would like to acknowledge the following people that are unable to be here today, mostly because they're overseas. So Graeme's sister, Fiona Lake, uni mates Miles, otherwise known as Mog, and Shane McCall, Rick and Jane Phillips, Rob Cudmore and Peter Neville, who was a uni mate of Graeme's and also shared a couple of houses in Sydney, and I think shared a lot of good times together that you may hear of a bit later on. And two of Andy Preston's sisters were unable to be here today, Mary Lou and Kate, and Andy's daughter, one of Andy's daughters, Ruby Preston, and also a friend of Wendy's, Susan Strong. But there's many more apologies that I'll hand on to Wendy later on. The McKindlays would like to acknowledge and thank all involved in getting today ready, and particularly Donna and Andrew Jeffries, for setting everything up at obviously short notice, and it's fantastic what they've been able to do. The Boat Club for providing a beautiful venue, the place Graeme loved. I don't know about the Boat Club itself, but he certainly loved the river and being on the river. And Craig Druitt and his team for making the surrounds and everything look fantastic here today. Can everyone hear me right out the back? Good, thank you. I also want to thank everyone who have given the family support and kindness and sent beautiful flowers and food, including food that's come today, and for all the lovely messages that have arrived over recent weeks. Graeme wants his farewell to be a celebration of life well lived. He didn't want any fuss and he didn't want a big shebang. He's actually quoted as saying to the family, "Remembering me is the best way to celebrate. I don't want sadness." In talking to Wendy and preparing for today, Wendy mentioned to me that he did have a 60th birthday, which he didn't really want. And the family feel Graeme was lucky that he shared a special celebration with lots of friends and family. Even though Graeme didn't want a big shebang and no fuss, family and friends have gathered again to mourn Graeme's untimely death and to celebrate and honour a wonderful and special person. The loving husband, father, father-in-law and grandfather, the brother, brother-in-law, an uncle, business partner, work colleague and friend to so many of you here today. And the large crowd is testament to who Graeme was, and it's fantastic to see so many of you here today. We are here to support Wendy and Graeme and Wendy's children, partners and grandchild. Camilla, Ben and Evelina, who's sitting here on the table. Sam and Joe, Gabby and Matt and Steph. But to satisfy Graham's wish by being remembered, there will no doubt be many laughs as we reflect on Graham's life and legacies, one of which is the many wonderful memories that we all have. Some come to mind for me: his laugh, his humour, his fun, his arguments over a few reds. And those few reds could actually turn into a few bottles of red, but we used to have a lot of fun arguing about various things. And his Carlton footy beanie, it's a bit of a challenge for me, standing in front of that Carlton flag being a Melbourne supporter. But even though Graeme didn't want sadness, there will be tears and sadness as we farewell a wonderful human being who was a loving family man and lived life of a selfless contribution to community and business. Graeme leaves behind a life consciously dedicated to making the world a better place. And I was actually doing some preparation for today, excuse me, and I came across a little phrase that I couldn't believe was so accurate for Graeme. And the essence of Graeme could be best described as: you didn't have to think about being good, you didn't have to make moral choices or think about the right things to do. His moral compass was always pointed in the right direction. And I thought that was a very apt comment about Graeme. Each of you comes with your own unique memories of Graeme, for he may not have been the same person to any two people. You each bring your own special memories of a man who touched your lives with love and friendship in a myriad of ways. A special person to each and every one of us. Our thoughts, support and love are with Wendy and the family. Now, there's a number of people that are going to speak. There's no other music or anything, so it's just memories of Graeme. And the first person that I'm going to introduce, and I'll introduce them as they're coming up, but is Wendy, who is the loving wife of Graeme, and will lead the tributes to Graeme with a eulogy of Graham's life.
Graeme McKindlay, born the 1st of October 1957 at the Echuca Hospital to Marahon Beth and Lachlan Neil McKindlay of Ulinia Downs, Paracuta Road, Moama. Brother to John, Fiona, who was unfortunately unable to be here today, and Roland. Graeme spent his childhood on the farm following his father and grandfather around, instilling his love for the land. Graeme attended Moama Primary School, where he made many lifelong friends before heading off to Geelong College to continue his secondary education. College provided more opportunities to cement further friendships, many of which are here today. On completion of his VCE, Graeme decided to take a gap year, and he, along with great mate Andy Preston, headed north to a place called Gurley near Moree to drive tractors and drink beers, as per Andy's recollection. In 1977, Graeme's next life adventure began, and he headed north again to commence his higher education at Armidale University, studying a Bachelor of Financial Administration, which he graduated on the 11th of April 1981. Graeme was a proud member of Robb College and a founder of the Key Kickers, introducing AFL football to the predominant die-hard rugby region. 4 of his many uni friends recently travelled from Queensland to Melbourne to visit Graeme at St Vincent's Private Hospital, highlighting just how special his many friends are. We've asked some of his school, college and uni friends to say a few words, but have asked them to temper their recounts so not as to tarnish Graeme's reputation too much. In 1982, Graeme hit the big smoke, Sydney. He lived with Peter Neville, and they both worked for Pete Mowat, Mitchell & Co., now known as KPMG Australia. Graeme lasted only about 12 months in the city before his country roots called him home. On the 17th of January 1983, Graeme commenced work at Coopers & Lybrand, Mulwala Plaza, Deniliquin. Graham's mother, Beth, a retired dental nurse, asked him to have his teeth checked when he settled in Deniliquin, and this appointment eventually changed his life's pathway. This is where he first met and eventually married myself on his birthday, the 1st of October. Graeme immersed himself in the community from the get-go, joining the Deniliquin Lawn Tennis Club, squash, volleyball and hockey clubs. Graeme held positions on the G&D and DNR ball committees over the years. Graeme was treasurer of the Cat Syndicate, the Paracuda Club, where a group of friends purchased a Catalina flying boat that had been transformed into a houseboat. This was an unbelievable sight on the mighty Murray River. On the 14th of August, 1989, Graeme became a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. 1990, Graeme and I purchased our forever home in St Michael Street, which holds so many beautiful memories for us all. 1991 was a huge year. Camilla Jane, our first daughter, arrived in May, and Fleming Partners was born. Michael Fleming, John Mulham, Brian McCleary and Graeme bought the Coopers and Lybrand business. On the 31st of May 1993, our only son Samuel Angus was born, and on the 6th of October 1995, Gabrielle Ann came into the world. 1996, Brian chose to leave the partnership and start his own practice. So the new Fleming Partners was formed with the remaining trio of Michael, John and Graeme, who have built and dedicated their life's work to this practice, their wonderful clients and staff. Graeme often said he could never have asked for two better blokes to go into debt with, and they made an amazing team. On the 7th of June 1998, our beautiful Stephanie Beck arrived, our fourth and final child. Graeme and I are immensely proud of all our children. As they were growing up, Graeme became more involved in their social and sporting activities, taking roles at junior soccer and the Wanderer Soccer Club, the Deniliquin Preschool and PNC at the Deniliquin High School. He was the founder of the Deniliquin Triathlon Club and was an active member, right up until 2 weeks before his diagnosis. Graeme, along with Craig Druitt, took over the running of the Deniliquin Sports Stadium at the turn of the century, and they, along with John Arthur and Katrina Ives, were instrumental in turning it into the community hub, sporting hub that it is today. Approximately 12 years after this, this non-for-profit group took on the running of the Deniliquin Pool, heated pool and the Outdoor Pool Incorporated, and I personally know how much time Graeme selflessly gave to these two projects, working weekends and after hours for the good of the community. 2014, Wayne Bradley nominated Graeme for Australia Day Citizen of the Year. He was very humbled upon receiving this award. The 18th of December 2018, Graeme was presented with a life membership of the Deniliquin High School PNC committee. The school has written a beautiful tribute which we've copied and placed on the wall. The 21st of January 2023, Graeme became unwell. He was later diagnosed with glioblastoma, an inoperable terminal brain cancer. On the 7th of May this year, Leanne Mulham and Fleming Partners held a fundraising walk at Rotary Park to raise awareness for much needed funds into the cure for brain cancer. They raised, with the assistance of the Count Charitable Foundation, an amazing $147,000, from which Graeme was extremely proud. One of Graeme's goals after his diagnosis was to meet our first grandchild, and on the 21st of June this year, Evelina Joyce Mann was born, fulfilling his wish and our hearts. We would sincerely like to thank everyone who's called, messaged, sent flowers and food, who have prayed and offered help. To the wonderful staff at the deniliquin Hospital who went above and beyond, we thank you all. Graeme is a very loving and caring husband and father with a huge heart and a thirst to help. His charitable nature results in us sponsoring several children overseas and donating to many different causes. For Christmas, apart from our cocktail competition that we hold, our children and their partners are given a sum of money to donate to a charity of their choosing, and in return they receive the gift of giving. In addition, they gain a tax deduction. Finally, Graeme was still giving after his passing. As an organ donor, he would be so pleased that he was able to donate his corneas to help others. And as a family, we are grateful that he will help somebody and benefit, and they will be able to see life through his eyes. Rest in peace, darling. We'll love and remember you always until we meet again. Thank you.
Well done, Wendy. That's a very brave thing to do. So well done. Graham's misbehaving a bit too. There's a few sun showers going through there, so I hope you're okay out from under the roof there. Next, Graham's children would all like to come up together and remember their father.
Hi everyone. We really appreciate the love and support we've received over the past week, and I know Dad would be truly humbled by the amount of people here today. As you can imagine, it was a difficult task preparing this speech, dwarfed only by the challenge of presenting it to you all. We soon realised when reminiscing about what to write today, that giving a heartfelt speech was going to be impossible, and that we had too many fond memories we wanted to share. With this in mind, and the fact that Dad would prefer we celebrate his life in more of an upbeat light, we've decided to share and reflect on some of the funnier memories we have with him. We've come to learn now more than ever that Dad lived a full and diverse life, and when sharing memories this afternoon, you might find yourself thinking, are they talking about the same Graeme McKindlay? As different stories reveal a new side to Dad. In the same token, to us, Dad was more than just our father. He was our accountant and financial advisor, our soccer coach, our bus driver and boat captain, our teacher, travel agent and tour guide, our #1 supporter and at times critic, our grammarian, and although almost certainly unqualified, he was also our driving instructor, personifying the admonition of do as I say, not as I do. Our dinner discussions may have sounded more like arguments to an outsider. However, they never ventured past a heated debate in Dad's eyes as he tried to impart his wisdom onto us. Early on, it became apparent that it was extremely rare for Dad to be wrong, and even rarer for him to admit it. On the odd occasion we thought we had Dad beat, he would inevitably skew the discussion in his favour, putting any errors in his answer down to how the question was phrased. After leaving home, we would often call Dad seeking advice on our daily problems, for which he was always willing to provide his insight. The advice, of course, was often what we needed to hear, and not necessarily what we wanted to hear.
Dad's knowledge on topics seemed to know no end. As a result, it was generally wise to take his advice on board. When we would complain of being unwell or tired, Dad would always know the cause and the cure. The cause being we had not done enough exercise, and his prescription was for us to do more exercise. As a result of this advice, when I was feeling quite tired and unwell, I decided I'd better go for a run and cure my symptoms. On this occasion, however, it appeared the medical advice given was not improving my condition, which continued to deteriorate. I nonetheless persisted with exercising, only to find out sometime later, from a real doctor, that I had glandular fever. Needless to say, Dad's prescription of more exercise was certainly not helping. Despite this, I continue to live an active lifestyle and I'm so grateful for the values he's instilled in me. Thanks to Dad, I've participated in numerous sporting events and leisure activities throughout my lifetime, as we all have. All the time having him there, either supporting and encouraging us, participating alongside us, or spectating with us. Hopefully you guys can all find some time tonight to watch Carlton beat Sydney. I'll always remember kayaking on the flooded Edward River with Dad, even though upon arriving at our point of departure, waterways made it abundantly clear that there was to be no boating, and that included kayaking. We took the boat off the roof anyway and headed downstream. These are some of the most cherished memories I have of Dad, and will no doubt think of Dad each time I exercise.
Dad has always believed that the key to happiness is helping others. Not only did he do this for those who were closest to him, but for the wider community. Dad continued to help others as much as possible in the last 6 months, despite my constant requests for him to just relax for once. In response, he'd always insist that what made him happiest is doing what he's always done, citing that he'd lived a great life and made the most of it, so why change now? Whether he was spending his personal time to better the community, sponsoring children and projects overseas to better their lives, or just taking time to assist others, Dad has always been a loving and generous role model. Dad's love for us often resulted in him pushing us to try new things out of our comfort zone, some of which include going overseas on exchange, sailing the Young Endeavour around the Whitsundays, learning an instrument, participating in the Great Vic bike ride, self-driving our way through Sri Lanka, which also included a jam-packed itinerary, not to waste a minute of Dad's time, and learning to kneeboard without a bank start. As I was learning to kneeboard without a bank start, I got to experience a different kind of Dad's love, tough love. To ensure I could unstrap myself from the kneeboard out on the river, Dad decided I should do a couple of practice flips. As he flipped the board over, panic set in. I couldn't undo the strap and I was soon splashing around, gasping for air. Dad's response was, "She'll be right, she has a life jacket on." Though little did he realise the step of putting the life jacket on had been overlooked. After what felt like an eternity, Mum eventually jumped out of the boat to help me. Despite this experience, with Dad's encouragement, I did learn to kneeboard and I'm better for it. I can only wish that I can make you proud and have my life as fulfilling as yours was, Dad.
Whenever we showed interest in a new sport, hobby, or topic, Dad would become an overnight expert, printing off relevant articles for us to read in our internetless home. Dad worked a lot of late nights. However, I've come now to wonder how much of that time was spent researching our new interests or printing off online recipes, which caught his eye, suggesting I might enjoy making it, for Mum of course. Dad also took to eBay, becoming a procurement specialist for anything we may need to pursue our newfound hobbies. A bargain for the Great Big Bike Ride, a recording microphone for Gab, a kayak for summer, the list goes on. One of these late night purchases was a Swiss Army knife, which, on our Easter camping trip, Dad decided to make a great gift for me, the well-established clumsy child at age 12. With knife in hand, I figured I'd try my luck at making a spear, which went surprisingly well until I flipped the knife shut, taking off the tip of my finger in the process. Dad's response was to rinse it off in the river and wrap it in a towel because it was a public holiday and the line at the hospital would be far too long. I'm sure there'll be many stories to come about Dad's driving, but for the most part, our childhood experiences with this were pretty pleasant. I fondly remember enjoying hard licorice, Big Red Chewy and Cool Mints from the lollybox with Dad, listening and singing American Pie, and rushing out to the soccer fields on winter mornings, reminding him to put his seatbelt on halfway out. On one occasion, I recall Dad telling Camilla, who was on her L's at the time, that there was plenty of height to make it into the Geelong Westfield car park. To his surprise, however, there was not plenty of room to get it in, which resulted in Dad in the driver's seat after a panicked Camilla decided to flee the scene. A whole intersection of traffic backed up, which Mum was now responsible for reversing, and the remainder of us kids in the backseat hiding our faces from the public eye. Perhaps most memorable of all, though, was experiencing Dad's lead foot when rushing down to Melbourne after realising he had the wrong departure date for my flight to Argentina just hours before departure. We couldn't be prouder of what our dad managed to achieve through his lifetime, and we're all so incredibly grateful for the family and life he worked so hard to provide us with. We look forward to remembering Dad with you all this afternoon and hearing many more stories. Thank you.
Well done, kids. I think your dad would be incredibly proud of that, because that's a tough job. We're now going to move away from family to friends, and I'm going to ask Andy Preston, a lifelong friend of Graham's. They grew up together and shared lots of memorable times, possibly learning a few bad habits from Graham or whatever, I'm not sure, but Andy will reflect on early memories of primary school years, and this is well before alcohol came into Graham's life. Give Andy's for that.
I hope so, Bruce. Thanks, Bruce, for the introduction. And well done, guys. Spoke well. Thank you, Andy, for giving me the opportunity to speak about Graham's primary school years. Born in 1957 in Chuka Hospital, he was brought home to Olympia Downs, a lovely house and garden on the Murray River. Graham and I were born about 6 weeks apart and lived along Perkett Road with farms very close to each other. It was only natural that we would start school together at Naima and start a friendship that would last over 60 years. Those were the days when you'd buy a pie and sauce and a can of drink for £2 bob. Also get free milk at morning recess and write with a pen and ink, which was great fun for a left-hander like me. We'd occasionally get the strap across the hand to get some discipline and order, and Graham had a deep voice and then would often get called out for talking in class as his voice seemed louder than others, and he thought he was being picked on, but really it was that deep voice he had. Graham's nickname at Naima was first Grays, short for Graham, then later to Blues, after he started barracking for Carlton, which he did for the rest of his life. I don't know how he got his name Farmer, but perhaps Pete Lindy can enlighten us on that. Other nicknames that are still used today from that time at school were Charcoal, Mark Anderson, Horace, Gary Edwards, Butch, Wayne Crawford, and Dinky, which is David Buchanan. One of the jobs we had at school was being wood monitors, as the classroom had wood heaters in those days. We would stack the wood under the teacher's staff room, which had stumps under it to keep the wood dry. We would end up making tunnels and cubby houses, all with the wood, which was great fun, even if it wasn't allowed. Another job was bin duty, which involved burning the rubbish and incinerator down the back. Quite often we would have to burn leftover cane from basket weaving. It wasn't long before we were smoking cane sticks, which for some led to a smoking addiction that lasted for years. Primary school was great, no pressure, plenty of birthday parties, heaps of sport and lots of stay-overs at each other's place, which included bike riding, rabbiting and all sorts of games. Graham has left some very big boots to fill, none other than the driver's seat he has occupied on the way to the grand final for over the last 30 years, with a group of friends, including Anna. The person to fill that driver's seat would have to be someone with a big car, preferably a statesman, which needs to be full of minties. Someone that must able be able to pick us up on Friday morning and drop us off Sunday at home. Someone would have to be able to book all the accommodation, meals, grand final tickets, and occasionally get us into the members' dining room and sometimes even a table by the window. Someone who is multilingual, argumentative, and can solve any disputes over the course of the weekend. Able to get 8 beers from a crowded bar to a table without spilling a drop Also able to read blackjack cards with one eye open, and last but not least, be able to open our hotel room late at night when someone forgot their key. As I say, I don't think there would be another person with all these fine qualities who could possibly fill Graeme's boots. We'd again like to thank Wendy, Camilla, Evita, Ben, Sam, Joe, Gabby, Matt and Steph for giving me the honour of saying a few words about Graeme. A great mate to myself and family for many years. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. The next person I'll invite to come up is Pete Lindeman, that's equally as long a friend as Andy is. And Andy and Pete are still very strong friends. Pete's going to talk about the years at Geelong College. And I'm not sure who got the bad habits from who during this period, but this period was presumably still before alcohol, but alcohol may have started to creep in the latter years, I'm not sure.
Thanks, Bruce, and thanks Wendy and the family for asking me to speak today. You have to say, if you have trouble doing this, you look up. So you might see me looking up every now and again. Even though Graeme and I lived not far from each other, I didn't really get to know him until we both started boarding at the Geelong College. We became great friends and have been friends ever since. We were groomsmen at each other's wedding. I didn't have a best man at mine. I had 5 good men, and Graeme was a good man. He didn't have too many enemies. Most people liked him. One of Graeme's nicknames at college was Blue Boy, being a passionate Carlton supporter. He was also known as Farmer. And I've been asked how this nickname came about. On discussion with Ricky Pyle, we decided that it might have come from China Phillip fairly early in the piece, noting that Graeme had a bad back at a young age and his knees were slightly bent forward when he walked. He said he thought Graeme was getting around like an old farmer. This nickname stuck, and before long he became known as Old Farmer or just Farmer. Most of us used to have an occasional cigarette, and the preferred place to go where we wouldn't be seen was a back lane just behind Claremont Avenue, less than 100 metres from Mackie House where we boarded. We used to smoke mainly drum, write your own tobacco, because we didn't have a lot of play money and it was a lot cheaper. There was a lot of puffing, a lot of coughing, but we soon became fairly good at it. Another one of our favourite places to go for a cigarette and some light refreshments was a vacant block in Mont Street, Newtown, about 150 metres from the college. This is where the Geelong College drinking team used to go to practice, partaking in beer, Stone's ginger wine, and cold duck spumante, which was aptly named. We had singlets screen printed with Geelong College drinking team on them. I bought a copy today of a photo of the team at this location. For some reason, Graeme wasn't there that day, but he was definitely part of the team. There was also another photo of the drinking team, not in uniform, that Graeme was in. We passed on the baton, and this place remained a great spot for those in the know to go and unwind. Needless to say, there's now 6 townhouses on the site. Rick Pyle reminded me the other day of when he and Graeme got caught by Ed Davies, the housemaster, drinking a flask of Remy Martin brandy. They were instructed by Ed to tell their fathers when they came down at the end of term to pick them up. Graeme apparently told his father Locke, and although not happy, I think he took it reasonably well. Rick, however, didn't tell Max, and as fate would have it, Ed told him, after which Max did a broadside and left in a cloud of dust on the gravel at the front of Mackie House as they were leaving to go home for the holidays. Now, Rick, this is not about you, but you were involved. Graeme studied hard to get where he did academically, a lot harder than most of us did. He also, as you've heard already, liked robust discussion / argument, which he was good at. More often than not, he was right, and even when he was wrong, he wouldn't give in. He was always prepared to fight for a cause. And Graeme, we are going to miss you in our lives. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. And you can see that there were really strong bonds built between Graeme and people like Andy and Pete. The next person, unfortunately, is not able to be here today. Miles McCall, Mob, to his mates and other uni mates have written a piece for today's service, and Wendy's asked if I can read that out. And this could be interesting reading, and if you recall in Wendy's eulogy, she asked those mates to tone it down a bit, and I think having read it already, that I think it is toned down a fair bit, and I suspect they had a lot of fun at university, and there was a lot of alcohol to be drunk up there. So this is from Mog's and Graeme's uni mates. Hello, following are a few combined thoughts and memories from lifelong friends of Graeme's from his time with Rob College at New England University in Armidale, northern New South Wales. This is another part of the farmer mythology. He was also universally in those circles known as Farmer or just Farms. The nickname was probably coined because he shuffled about like an old farmer, as Pete's already referred to, or perhaps due to his ultra-conservative dress style, namely R.M. Williams boots, R.M. Williams cream white moleskins with the press stud pockets that were always folded down open, cotton shirt, often a tweed sports coat. That might sound a bit like the Graeme McKindlay you all know, but these were the late 70s. And if you think back to the late 70s, many others were in flares, faded jeans, crocheted vests, hot pants, most of which farms openly disapproved of. Pete, another mate who shared a house with Graeme, recollects the extremely impressive figure that Farmer cut when he first saw him at a first-year student get-together in Rob College common room. He was decked out with long leather boots worn outside his jeans and wore a thick jumper with an extra long scarf. And since that first meeting, they've been great mates ever since. Farmer was a great fun to be around and always participated willingly in any adventure. I suspect they had a lot of adventures. We have some terrific humorous and to some of you, I'm sure, surprising anecdotes about this man who will be so sorely missed. We played hard and did some wild things during those days, but all still managed to come out the other end with our respective degrees. Moggs first heard of Farmer before he met him, even though he didn't know his name then. On the second night of uni, we were all at the Wicklow Hotel, and someone was passing the hat around for a fresher who had T-boned a Land Rover in his Holden ute. Now, I'm not sure whether that was Graeme or who, but anyway, Moggs met him the next day or thereabouts, and they hit it off from the get-go. Farmer lived for a couple of years in college, and in 1979 moved into a flat in Curtis Street, sharing with Moggs. Dara and Shane shared a flat in Spare Avenue at the same time, and Dara remembers that they would have dinner parties, which Moggs and Farmer would reciprocate. Moggs remembers he and Farmer purchased a flash newfangled hot pot for their dinner parties, and that they cooked some pretty good things in it. He also remembers, though, that they grew all sorts of strange things in the hot pot when they neglected to wash it. Moggs also remembers how Farmer would sit him down in front of a Sunday night TV show called The Winners, which was a summary of the weekend VFL games. Aussie rules was totally foreign to those of Queensland and northern New South Wales. And Farmer taught Moggs the basics of the game, which he has kept him in good stead to this day. Farmer not only played Aussie rules for Rob College, he was the captain coach one year of the Rob College third grade rugby union side, a very social team called the Keg Kickers, which Graeme was a founding member. I think they may have had even been premiers. The emphasis was more on social than it was on rugby. There are stories about Rob College balls, Rob picnic races, B&S's across New South Wales, epic road trips to Sydney. Over a day and night, Moggs, Fipsy, Hamo and Farmer drove Moggs' grandmother's 65 Holden to Sydney. Must have been a hot day, because they stopped at the Marshall McMahon Hotel in Wallabadar for a quick beer. 6 hours later they left. Picked up a hitchhiker in Singleton and scared the bejesus out of him. Goodness knows how they got to Fipsy's place, his parents' place in Sydney. Then there was a card all-nighter at college, and Farmer took the same 65 Holden to Uralla at about 5 in the morning to buy hamburgers and chips. Unfortunately, they rolled it in the middle of the New England highway, doing handbrake turns, as you would do. But there's the story of farms lighting the open fire in Butler Cottage, the house that he shared with Moggs and Fipsy in 1980, with petrol, because the other two were too slow in getting the fire alight. Some here will recollect the days of the Bachelor and Spinster balls, or B&S's, often held in wool sheds. We dressed in ball gowns and black dinner suit tied with black ties and dinner suits. Bands played until early hours and the grog flowed freely, before the days of drink driving and RSA certificates. On a particular occasion, a beer glass somehow got broken and a nasty shard was embedded in the hay bale that Farmer sat on, piercing his thigh. Where usually it was grog that flowed freely at B&S's, at this one it was Farmer's blood that flowed freely, so much that the hay bale was soaked bright red soon after Farmer pulled the piece of glass, at least 10 centimetres long, out of his leg. In those days though, Farmer had a penchant for rum, and it was fortuitous that there was probably enough of it in his system to provide both antiseptic and anaesthetic. Typically, Farmer was not at all concerned about himself. In response to calls for a trip to hospital, his major concern was that no one be inconvenienced and that we all stay on and have a good time, and we could go to the hospital sometime later. Don't worry about it. After leaving uni, Farmer moved to Sydney, sharing flats in Kensington and Mossman with Pete, during a time when they had to complete the professional year to become chartered accountants. They passed that torrid year while still having some fun along the way. It is this time during the early 80s that Pat Prowsey remembers some funny events. Many a time he remembered being roused from Spotforth Street's moth-eaten couch after returning from partying somewhere with Pete and friends. It would be past midnight and he'd hear, "Come on, Prowsey, get up, the night is still young," as Farmer came back from some other outing. They'd charge off in his beaten up yellow Valiant, you know about that one, Andy? And to find some place open till the early hours of the morning. If not, the seedy taxi club was the last resort. One early morning in particular comes to Prowsey's mind when the place had nearly cleared and a couple of very flamboyant drag queens had sidled up to them, and they not so coyly asked, "You boys aren't going to let two girls go home by themselves tonight, are you?" Well, with the heels, hair and colourful attire, they towered over us and we were instantly sober. Though slightly taken aback, Farms, ever the gentleman, politely declined the invitation, but offered to buy the lasses a drink to soothe their broken expectations. Then they proceeded to regale with us some fantastically colourful tales of their escapades, which had tears of laughter running down all our faces over the next hour or so. Pete also remembers a card game in Kensington, playing pontoon with 5-cent bets. The game started at 10 p.m. on a Friday night after we came back from the Four in Hand pub in Paddington. Anything went on non-stop for nearly 48 hours, finishing at 5 p.m. on Sunday. Farmer was a man unto himself, never rude or angry, but a tad wild in an understated way. He might have been in a few scrapes, but never hurt anyone else. Just maybe himself from time to time. We all laughed that he grumbled like an old man, and also at his shoulder-shaking laughter. A straight shooter, he said what he felt without fear nor favour. Homo cites this is exemplified by our recent visit in Melbourne when he told Fipsy and Homo that they had put on some weight, but was quick to tell Dar that she hadn't. We all valued his insight, but knew not to try to sway his sometimes forceful opinions or change his sometimes stubborn mind. Farmer possessed a gladiatorial work ethic when called upon, both during uni times and in the business world. Pete and Farmer continued to discuss tax legislation nuances affecting their clients up until May this year. Pete also says Farmer made a huge difference to the development and continuation of tax accounting, in his own career. Farmer was intelligent, quick-witted, honest, and had a strong, sensible moral compass. And with that self-effacing style that we all know so well, he was a loyal and staunch friend to many. Everyone here knows the enormous impact he had in this community. These funny stories are Farmer's personal qualities, unforgettable and easy to recount, but is much harder to put in words our sorrow of his loss. Wendy, Camilla, Sam, Gabby and Steph. And it's our loss too of a great man and a very great friend from Moggs, Homo, Pete, Fipsy, Prousey and Dar. So they obviously were great university times. We'll now ask Mike Fleming to come up and reflect on Graham's time in business with Mike and John Mueller, who spent a long time together in Fleming Partners.
Thanks, Bruce. We've just got a few members of our team here because Graeme was always so incredibly into teams, so we thought it was good to have a few of our staff members up the front. First of all, I'd just like to thank Wendy and the family for the chance to talk today and to share in the celebration of Graham's life. Where do we even start to talk about Graeme and his contribution to our firm and community? A brief look at history and the commencement of Fleming Partners. Graeme commenced his accounting career in Denny on the 17th of January 1983 at Coopers and Idran, exactly 1 week after John Mueller started with Coopers and Idran. Carolyn and myself were already part of the CNL team, and Priscilla started in June 2002 after migrating from Sri Lanka, and she became a partner with Graeme in July 22. On the 31st of May 1991, Fleming Partners purchased the practice from Coopers and Idran, and this commenced an association between Graeme, John and myself for 30 years prior to John's retirement in 2021. John was going to be away, but he's made a special effort to get back today, and he did send us an email in anticipation of not being here, but I'd still like to read it out to you because there's lots of really great insights into Graeme. Graeme McKindlay. Just the name sounds a bit like an argument in itself, doesn't it? Graeme was the great contrarian. At least that's how he was often perceived. We'd always remember Graeme offering a point of view different to the popular consensus. And I think most of us on encountering this could feel a little bit confronted by it. It actually took a while to realise that often the view Graeme would be espousing was the polar opposite of his own. It was just in the interests of fully ventilating all sides of an issue, Graeme would take up a non-conforming view. Having known him for most of my adult life, I would also postulate that the fun of bringing up an opposing view was not lost on Graeme. He had a great sense of humour, and it was always satisfying seeing him burst out laughing at some offbeat way of looking at things. Excuse me. Just on his sense of humour, I remember him almost causing me to expire laughing, and apparently he was similarly affected when a simple text message question about whether an elder of a family we knew was still with us or not turned into an hour-long text version of the Who's On First contest. Only the names were real. We were probably just overtired. That's probably right. Graeme's sense of humour, just like a few other aspects of his character, was a thing not always obvious. He was in himself and to himself contrary. Often coming across as a fairly gruff, say it as it is type person, Graeme was, and I've said this many times during his life, the kindest, most empathetic, ethical, soft-hearted, loyal person you could ever hope to have on your side. This is not to deny his intellect, nor his astounding capacity for logic. Graeme's good deeds were too many to mention, and now is not the time. But it would be remiss of me to not mention Graeme's family's almost single-handed support for a small school in Vietnam. His contribution to civic affairs in deniliquin through his involvement in the Stadium Management Committee, the Swimming Pool Management Committee, the High School PNC, the Soccer Club, the Triathlon Club, to name a few, was selfless, at times courageous, and always with the interests of the organisation at heart. Over the nearly 40 years of our friendship, we've had some interesting times together. In the early days, many Friday nights after work, he'd take me over to a close, handy establishment, and we'd dispense our wisdom on each other and anyone else in the vicinity. A tiger on the grog, he fixed me up many a time. Susie says I should recount a time when she came to collect me from Graeme's flat, probably in St Michael Street, quite late in the evening, to find two budding professionals sitting on the floor, because there was nothing else except maybe an old TV set about the size of the flat, drinking port, because, well, there was nothing else. This isn't about me, but can I say I haven't been able to drink port since. As young accountants, we attended a conference on Mount Buller together. He and I were the only ones who didn't know it was a full-on junket. The only thing I learned was how to snowplow my way to travel down the never-to-be revisited Black Run. He and I attended a 14-day, a lot of socialising these two. He and I attended a 14-day fact-finding and cultural exchange mission in Bali together. I almost didn't survive that either. My lasting impression of Graeme was Graeme locked in a mortal backgammon combat with a Balinese guy we befriended. It took him a while, but using his irrefutable logic and bulldog determination, Graeme had figured out how his opponent was cheating, and he was having a ball keeping him honest. Graeme's respect for people he came into contact with was universal. In all of our years as work colleagues, business partners, friends, confidants, conspirators, you name it, we had many, many robust discussions. Never a single argument. I could go on, but the great contrarian gets us again. The person I thought most likely to do not die before me has gone. It shakes our world, it saddens us, it rocks our belief in the way things are. Graeme's family, and I know me and my family, the Fleming partners' family, along with a great many others of us, have lost a friend, a safe harbour, a given in our lives. Someone who has always said will no longer be there. I know for my part I'm the richer by far for having had Graeme as a friend. His legacy is a better community, a beautiful family, and many great memories. I'd also just like to go through a couple of, we asked the staff just to come up with a few points that they thought of. So we might jump around a little bit here. Graeme used his talents, his education, his intellect, and his experience in ways that had a positive effect on people around him and on his community. Within the workplace, his standards were high, and his pursuit of the best outcome for clients was always front of mind. He constantly challenged himself and colleagues to make the extra time to ensure exacting standards were met. Graeme mentored, encouraged, challenged and supported us and provided friendship. Intellect, integrity, professionalism, clear thinking, organisational ability and loyalty are marks of his character. Graeme's inclination to debate until all around him lost energy is a personality trait well remembered. He is sorely missed and remembered for the person he was. Graeme was a hard taskmaster, and if you said you didn't know how to do something, he'd challenge you to find out. He knew we were all capable of much more, and his guidance helped us to use our abilities to the fullest. When Graeme was diagnosed early on, we found ourselves asking what would Graeme do, and because of his mentoring and consistency, we knew exactly what to do and how to get on with it. Graeme's loyalty and caring nature to his staff should be commended, and whatever we went through, he was right there with us. We'll remember his motto as being, "We are here to help." Many of our staff members have been working with Graeme for a number of years, which is only possible by the loyalty shown by all and the family environment that was established by the partners. Graeme has always been a father figure and a colleague that was always there for us. Lunchtimes will never be the same in our office without Graeme's friendly banter and his input into our discussions, no matter what the topic. His knowledge and his calmness was soothing to everybody. Family Partners has been fortunate enough to have many different nationalities introduced to our office over the years. Graeme found this intriguing, and he would always ask about the culture with great interest, and had many curiosities about their way of life and food, etc. He even travelled to Sri Lanka with his family and visited many places, including Priscilla's school, and caught up with many of her friends. Had a few stories about Priscilla. Graeme was enormously helpful to new staff members, and he helped many settle into town, whether that be by sourcing furniture for them, assisting with the physical side of moving, assisting with visa difficulties, and even down to feeding chooks when people were away on holidays. Once again, nothing was too much trouble. We have ex-staff members who have travelled from Sydney, Melbourne and Ballarat to be here today, which is a measure of their respect for Graeme. People have different reasons for working. Graeme's major motivation was to help people, and he would work tirelessly to achieve the best result for clients. A lot of that involved very late nights, but nothing was too much to achieve the best result. Graeme was no saint by any means, and everyone has flaws. His was that he was not a morning person, probably because he'd been working till about 3 o'clock the morning before. If you had to see him about something, and he could wait till after lunch, then it did. And if all else failed, you could cry. Graeme couldn't handle crying. He's probably been strife in the office over the last couple of weeks because there's been a lot of tears shed, so I can almost hear a deep voice saying it's time for us to get on with it. We'd like to acknowledge the clients of Filming Partners and say thank you for your patience and understanding over the last few months. It's been a big adjustment for our office. The relationship Graeme had with his clients was one of genuine interest, whether it was business related or personal. I know his clients will miss that unexpected phone call at all hours of the night and day. We'd like to thank Wendy, Camilla, Sam, Gabby and Steph for their love and support of Graeme that allowed him to give so much to others. the late nights at the office helping new staff settle in, and his commitment to the community were only possible because he had all of you around him. And we extend our sympathies to you on the loss of a great person who we all loved and admired. You will miss him, and so will we. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael, and the Fleming team. And you can appreciate how important Graeme was in that organisation and business, and to the clients that he had. The last speaker we've got is Craig Druitt, a long-standing Denny friend who has worked closely with Graeme over many years in successful community organisations, P&C, the Deniliquin Sports Stadium and the swimming pool, and they made a great team. So Craig's coming up to say a few words about that.
Thanks, Bruce. Just get sorted here. It is my absolute honour to talk about my mate, Graeme. Graeme and I worked together on a lot of projects. And we talked about, and Michael talked about that banter we all had. Those arguments, not arguments, they weren't really. It was just a healthy debate, really. And this community will have a huge, enormous loss for what he did for the local. I had the privilege of working with him, with Graeme, and he had this enormous capacity. He had great ideas. He always took on not things that were running well. He wanted the challenge of the financial challenge or the people challenge on different committees that we worked together. And we had some great fun. I'll probably, I've written out a fair bit of stuff, and I'd like Julia, if she wouldn't mind, to read out some notes that we've also made. Thanks, Jill.
Graeme and my journey started with all our kids going to Edward Public School. As a member of the school P&C, I asked Graeme to join us on the committee, but he declined, stating the school was thriving already. Instead, Graeme chose to focus his efforts on supporting community groups that were under-resourced or struggling financially. This was the beginning of an incredible community journey. Over 22 years ago, Graeme and I were approached by a councillor to consider running the Deniliquin Stadium, a council-owned asset that was extremely underutilised at the time. It was then that we decided to form a non-profit community group, the Deniliquin Sports Park Incorporated, to take on this challenge. Graeme became the treasurer and put forward strategic business ideas to enhance the facility and engage the community in sports. Today, the stadium has over 500 weekly users participating in over 10 different sports, which is a credit to Graeme's dedication and vision. In 2020, Graeme played a pivotal role in the major upgrades to the Deniliquin Stadium, which was a $1.5 million project delivered by the community group in partnership with the council. The building was extended and another sporting court was added to the facility, making it in high demand by many in the community. With the success of the stadium, we were asked to tender on the running of the Deniliquin pool over 11 years ago. Graeme played a vital role in analysing the financials and putting forward a business case that outlined how best the facility could be run by the community for the community. This was a successful application and our 10-year journey with the Deniliquin pool began. Graeme was passionate about local employment, reinvesting in local facilities and engaging the community in sports. In recent years, under Graeme's financial guidance, the community group funded and installed an outdoor splash park, another community project highlighted through Graeme's community vision. Graeme's community involvement didn't stop there. He also saw an opportunity to make an impact with the Deniliquin Junior Soccer Club, which was struggling financially prior to Graeme's involvement. And he managed to enhance their financial position and engage our community to participate more in sports. Graeme was president of the Junior Soccer Club for a period between 2004 and 2010 and remained on this committee, making his involvement well over 15 years. He was also involved in the Wanderers Soccer Club from 2005 to 2007, another community group that was under-resourced and Graeme left his mark on. Sam and Tom would play soccer, I was the coach, and Graeme would drive the bus to all the away games. We had a lot of fun travelling to Griffith for away games, and it brought us both great joy that our community had access to another sporting opportunity. Another community project that brought great enjoyment to Graeme in recent years was the Deniliquin Triathlon Club. Graeme founded the group prior to 2008 after some young community people expressed interest in the sport whilst travelling to Chukamalama to participate. Graeme saw the opportunity to form a group in Deniliquin, which was a huge success. John Trist summed up Graeme's passion for the group in a recent Facebook post, saying Graeme gained great satisfaction seeing young people strive to produce their best, and he encouraged them every step of the way. He was modest about his own achievements, but it was never about him. He moulded the Tri Club into a group of people who wanted to improve their personal fitness. In addition to his passion for sports, Graeme had a great passion for education and providing the community with opportunities. He was a long-standing member of the Deniliquin High School P&C, where he implemented many projects. The Homework Club was one that he was very passionate about, where students were further supported to complete homework and school assignments in a supportive environment. In 2018, Graeme was awarded Life Member of the Deniliquin High School P&C. Graeme was humble in everything that he did and never sought recognition for his contributions to the community. However, the community knew his contribution and wanted him recognised. In 2014, he was awarded Citizen of the Year at the Eder River Council Australia Day ceremony. This was a well-deserved recognition for an amazing contribution to the community. Graeme's approach to community work was honourable. He had a focus on making sure everyone in our community, no matter their circumstances, had equal opportunity. He supported organisations that needed it, and he was inclusive in everything that he did.
Thanks, Julia.
The Deniliquin community is a better place because of Graeme McKindlay. He will leave a legacy in our community that we should all strive to continue. And I know Wendy, Camilla, Sam, Gabby and Steph are extremely proud of the generous, selfless man he was. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Craig. Thanks, Julia. And between Craig and Grant, they were a formidable team in those pursuits of better outcomes for community. In closing, there's been many words used throughout the memories of Graeme, and I've just got a list of them here as we close, because obviously the weather's closing in a bit on us too. So selfless, compassionate, passionate, generous, caring, humble, contrarian, strong-minded, stubborn, broad-minded, loving, funny, naughty, mischievous, family, strong, hard-working, community, commitment, special, unique, interested, challenging, proud and pride. His inspiration, his devotion to his family and his service to humanity will live on. Take comfort, Wendy, Camilla, Sam, Gabby and Steph. that you had a special husband and dad. His physical presence is gone, but his spiritual presence will live in you and with you forever. That closes the sort of reflection of Graeme, and you can all appreciate what a sad loss it is. So I'm sorry, Graeme, but it is sad. But there are many, many memories that can make us happy. And I think Craig summed it up well in the sense that we all have a responsibility to carry Graeme's legacy on and support his family. The family now, though, would love you to stay for a couple of hours and continue to celebrate Graeme's life and share memories. The celebration he wanted. And then Graeme would like the people to head off to their televisions for a game of footy that's on. It doesn't matter who you barrack for. He wants Carlton to win and he wants you all to barrack for it. So that's the first task Graeme has left us, right? To carry on his legacy. Wendy and the family have also asked people if they have memories and photos, could they please put them up on the memory boards that are along here, or if you have things you'd like to write down, there's paper and pencil and papers there so you can write things down, and they want him to collect them after today and preserve them for memory. So on behalf of Wendy and the family, a big thank you for your attendance, kind words and thoughts and love and support during these challenging 8 months. Thank you. Just as I do close, there's coffee and tea, I think, up there in that corner, and there's harder stuff on the other side. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience too with the bad weather outside. It's been beautiful in here, but you might want something warm and cosy now. Thank you.